Hi everyone, I'm Anthony, and I'm very excited to be with you today to talk about the different ERP deployment methods, such as on-premise, cloud, or hybrid. First, we have cloud-based ERP systems, also known as SaaS. With these systems, your ERP provider takes care of hosting and offers access to the solution through web browsers or custom mobile applications. Imagine having your ERP accessible from everywhere just with an internet connection. On the other end of the spectrum, we have on-premise systems. With this type of deployment, the company takes care of the hosting on their own infrastructure. When you want to have full control over your data and your ERP system, you prefer this deployment method. Last but not least, you have the hybrid ERP system. It blends the best of both worlds of a cloud deployment and an on-premise local deployment. If you want to still get the flexibility of the cloud, but want to have the control that you would get with an on-premise deployment, prefer this model. Now let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of cloud ERP versus on-premise ERP. So the first major difference between the two is the cost. With an on-premise deployment, you'll usually have more costs upfront, as you usually have to purchase a perpetual single license to deploy the software. Whereas in a cloud deployment, you'll pay a monthly or annual subscription to get access to the software. And then on top of that, you can have additional charges for, let's say, support, training, or more features. A second big difference between the two deployment models is data security. So companies are initially reluctant to move to the cloud because they don't have control over data security. It is true that with an on-premise deployment, you have more control over your data security, but that responsibility ultimately does fall on your IT team to make sure that you have the right systems in place to protect your data. With a cloud deployment, really you're giving that responsibility to your ERP service provider. So it becomes a matter of choosing the right ERP service provider to make sure that you can trust them with your data. A third big difference between the deployment models is system mobility. And that's where cloud has a clear advantage over on-premise. Because since it is hosted on the service provider's servers and accessible on a web browser from anywhere, it makes it a lot more flexible of a system to use even when you're out of the office. The fourth and final big difference between the two deployment models is on implementation. A typical on-premise deployed solution will be longer to implement just because of all the resources that have to go into preparing the infrastructure. It will also typically take more resources in time to properly maintain the environment and make sure that you always stay up to date. An on-premise deployment will typically be more advantageous for very large organizations with a significant ERP budget and a desire and need to customize the solutions to their specific needs. It can also address the needs of those maybe medium to smaller organizations that have very complex or specific business processes that they can't make fit into a standard system. Thank you for being with me today. If you need help choosing the best deployment model for your business, EC Solutions can help. And for more information, go to ecsolutions.com.